Hey guys, it's Levi Peterson here from Northside Aquatics. Now today's video is going to be a little more different than what we're normally used to. I usually do fish videos upstairs and everything. I asked you guys a couple of different questions. I wanted to know what kind of videos you wanted to see in the future and just kind of what you wanted to see overall in videos in general. I didn't get much feedback, so I just decided to kind of come up with my own ideas, and a boss gave me a couple ideas that would be a really nice idea for people who actually know these things, that there's way cheaper ways to do it than taking it in and buying a new fish tank, or simply having someone else fix it for you when it's really not that hard where you could fix it yourself. So today's video is actually going to be on putting trim on a tank. Now if you don't know what the trim is on a tank, which I kind of hope you do, it's actually just this black stuff or this wood grain stuff that's on your tank on the bottom and on the top. And then obviously they have center braces if they're bigger tanks, unless you have a smaller tank like this 30 long. Now this tank over here, we currently put in a new panel on the side, which that's going to be a separate video. We're going to do some panel installations. We still got this one to go here, and these are 75-gallon aquariums. Now I'm going to kind of give you a quick rundown on how to actually do this. I'm going to show you that you got to scrape some silicone off the top and everything, and we're just going to kind of go over how to actually do this so you guys know how to do it at home. So if you have cracked trim or something, then you can simply find some trim online. Just make sure it's the exact measurement for your tank, obviously. And I'm just going to show you kind of how to do it and everything, and kind of help you guys out in the long run, money-wise and everything like that. Northside Aquatics does fix tanks, obviously, so if you have a cracked panel or something, bring it in. We'll try to help you out as best as we can, figure out something for you. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get to it. I'm going to kind of show you exactly what to do and how to do it. Okay, do not mind the mower in the background. Now the first thing you actually have to do, if you have a piece of cracked trim for, say, this tank over here, like maybe this center brace is cracked or something, what you have to do is you have to remove this piece of trim without breaking the glass, which is a little bit challenging sometimes, but if you have a nice sized tank, it's usually not as hard, but it is still possible because I've done it a few times. Now the first thing you really have to do is actually get this trim off without breaking the glass. So what I kind of do is I use a Dremel and kind of go on the sides, especially on the top here. I'm going to kind of show you in a little bit that this goes right against the glass. On the bottom, it just sits on the glass, so this piece doesn't go down, the glass piece doesn't go down inside like it would up here, if you know what I mean. It goes right up in there and everything. So you're going to have to be careful when you're using a Dremel to kind of cut the trim off, because you do not want to hit the glass. You want to make it so you can kind of peel it off. And you may have to use razor blades and everything and kind of cut the silicone off to make sure you get it off fully without breaking the glass. Now we're going to head over here. I got a couple different supplies that you're going to need. It's really not that hard, and it's really not that expensive to actually do this. But the first thing you really want to do after you get the trim off is actually you want to make sure that there's not much silicone or none at all on the outside. See, there's a little bit of silicone marking. Even after I scraped it the first couple times, you still got to make sure that all that stuff is off on the outside, simply because you're going to put acetone on it to make it as clean as possible. And then obviously you're going to put more silicone inside the trim, which is going to be shown in a little bit. You want to try to make sure where you're putting on the trim is as clean as possible. And then obviously if you got more dirtiness in your tank, you can obviously clean that out after you put on the trim or before you put the trim. It's kind of your preference. I tend to put the trim on and make sure all this area around the top is all cleaned off before I actually put the trim on, and then I usually clean it up afterwards. Now, like I said, you want to make sure you get all the silicone off, even the small stuff here. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see here. There's little streaks of silicone left on it. You gotta make sure you get it off, and simply just use like a razor blade. It's really not that challenging. Every now and then you have to swap out razor blades because they will get dull fast, especially scratching against the edge of the glass. But see, you got to make sure you get all that silicone off, or at least as much as you kind of physically can, which is kind of hard to get all of it, but you want to do the best that you can to get as much off so the silicone, when you put on the trim, will stick as best as it can. Now, as you see on the side here, it is a little murky. Now that means there's a little bit of calcium on there. So what you want to do is either use vinegar, or what we use here at Northside Aquatics is actually toilet bowl cleaner, and obviously we clean the tanks really well afterwards and everything just to make sure all the chemicals are off of it. Toilet bowl cleaner and vinegar will actually clear that up pretty well, and obviously once the tank's actually full, you really won't see that stuff, so it's really not too big of a deal. But when you put in a new trim on, you want to make sure it's as clean as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of clean this up a little bit, and then we're going to head over here and show you me putting silicone in the trim and exactly where to put it for the top of the tank, because this is the top. And then we're going to do the bottom, possibly in another video or later in this video. Okay, the next step in this process of putting new trim on a tank with broken trim is simply, obviously you got the trim off and everything, and this is actually the bottom that I'm doing now. I'm going to do the bottom before I do the top, because the weight of the tank will actually hold the silicone down and actually get a tight squeeze on it. So what you do is you want to put some acetone on it or lacquer thinner, and you want to rub it around the edges exactly where you're putting the silicone itself. And obviously you want to put it in the middle. It all depends on kind of your preference. So you kind of just rub it around the outside where you're going to put the silicone and where the trim actually sits on the tank. And like I said, this is the bottom, so it'll be the weight will be on this. So we're going to kind of flip it around a little bit later and put it over on the cement, and then we'll do the top. So like I said, you want to make sure this is as clean as possible. Otherwise the silicone will not stick at all. Like, you need it as clean as you possibly can to get this thing to stick. Then you want to let it, you don't have to let it sit for a little bit, but obviously we have to go run over there and put the silicone on the trim and everything, which is what we're going to do next. So we're going to let it sit for a couple minutes and run over and do the silicone. Then we'll put the trim right on, get it flipped over, and drag it out over to the cement. Alright, do not mind the sound of the water in the background. This bottle right here is actually just about empty, so I'm going to use it up. I was about to say, you want to be careful with air bubbles in silicone, but that's kind of more when you're resealing tanks, and we'll actually do that a little bit later. We'll have a separate video on resealing tanks and putting glass panels in. What you want to do is you kind of just want to put it exactly where the trim will actually touch the tank itself. So you want to put it all around the edges and everything. And you want to make sure it's a nice thick coat, because you want it to stick as well as it can, and you won't have any problems whatsoever. Kind of just drag it along here. I mean, it's really not hard. It's a little time consuming, but it's not as hard as people will actually think. Okay, so now that the silicone's on there, what we have to do is we have to get it over to the tank and just set it on there. Make sure we press it down and make sure it's all in where it's supposed to be. And then we want to, as quick as possible, get either some weight on it, which I'm going to probably just put some weight on it, because Randy is currently busy and Adam's currently busy, so I don't want to bother them to get it on the concrete or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just set a couple smaller tanks on it to kind of hold it down, and that should just be enough weight for today. So what we're going to do is, like I said, I showed you the silicone on the inside where the actual trim itself is actually going to touch the tank. You don't want to do the groove down in the trim, otherwise it's not obviously going to attach. So I want to get over there as quick as possible and get it on the tank. Exactly how I do it, I kind of flip it around and make sure this end gets on as good as I can. Just set it on there perfectly, press down all around. Then set some weight on it and you're good to go. Well guys, I'd like to thank you for watching that video. I hope it was helpful to you guys that have like broken trim or whatever, or just kind of give you ideas for what you can do as far as purchasing a tank with broken trim and everything. Not to worry too much, because it's not very expensive to actually redo them. And before I actually end this video, I want to recommend, I wouldn't actually reframe a tank under a 75 gallon, because it's simply not, like, you might as well just buy a new tank at that point. I mean, when 75s start coming around and everything, it may be cheaper just to kind of do the trim, but anything below that is just cheaper just to simply buy a new tank. So just kind of throwing that out there so it gives you a little heads up and everything. But other than that, thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you in the store soon. We'll see you next time.